There's also the MCAT. The MCAT is the medical exam that you have to take before entering into medical school. But you basically study for that exam, ideally do well, and then in your junior year or so, you apply to medical school. Da-da-da-da. And I talk more about general advice for pre-medical students in another video, so you can check that out in more detail. So you went through these 4 years and you get accepted into medical school after your interviews and applications, spending all that money in applications, not just the primary application, but also the secondary application, and paying for all of that. And finally, a medical school says, yes, come child, come be a doctor. So you go to medical school. Medical school is a solid set 4 years. Before I say anything further, I just remembered that there are some places where undergrad and medical school are combined. It's either in different countries, or I think there are two or three in the United States, if I remember correctly, where undergrad and medical school are combined. So instead of spending 4 years in undergrad, 4 years in med school, you spend a total of 5 to 6 years instead of 8 years. So you can look into those programs too if you want to save some time. But be careful, because if you apply to, say, a medical school in a foreign country, you may have to go through some loops coming back to the United States. That doesn't go for all medical schools outside of the US. There's some that are linked to the United States where you can practice also in the United States during your 3rd and 4th years of med school, and they have relations and you don't have to go through as many loops and hoops. So do your research before you jump into anything. So yes, medical school is 4 years. First 2 years are your basic sciences. You go to lecture, you learn everything, you go to anatomy lab, you learn everything, you go to the hospital, you learn everything, but for the most part it's lecture based, and you take a bunch of exams similar to undergrad. Second 2 years, 3rd and 4th year. So those are about clinical rotations. Clinical rotations means that you literally rotate in all the hospital departments, and you can be rotating in different hospitals as well. So you have to do your family medicine rotation, surgery rotation, OBGYN rotation, your internal medicine rotation, pediatrics rotation, and then you can do your elective rotations in your 4th year. At some schools, the students have to get those themselves by calling different hospitals, emailing them saying, I'm interested in doing a cardiology rotation or neurology rotation or another surgery rotation. Please tell me what dates are available, how much I have to pay for it, the process, etc. And then you apply for those and they respond to you, and then it's a whole thing. But if your school just signs you up straight away, lucky you. You don't have to go through that process. Every school is different. I talked more about the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th years of medical school in another video in more detail, so check that out as well if you want to get a glimpse into what it's like. So during medical school, you can also engage in extracurricular activities, research, volunteering, all of that, but the biggest emphasis is on your studies. Do well on your studies. After your first 2 years of medical school, you take the Step 1 exam, which is this big board exam. And then after your 3rd year of medical school, you take the Step 2 exam. And during the end of your 4th year, you take the Step 3 exam. So exams. And these are not cheap exams. I had to pay $975 for one exam. And if you are an international medical student, you're gonna have to pay more, unfortunately. And there's this whole certification process that costs $900. Here's the bottom line. You're gonna be spending a lot of money. A lot of money. Not just on your clothes, like your white coat, your professional clothes, not just on your books, not just your medical student loans, which can range from $100,000 to $400,000. I'm not even exaggerating. It's housing, where you have to move from here to there, rent, applications, BLS, ACLS, PALS certification courses, TB tests, blood tests, screens, masks, N95 mask measurements, like all these little things and big things, and having to complete all these administrative duties and filling out all this paperwork and filling out the notes and studying for your exams and going through thousands and thousands of questions and sleepless nights and staying awake at the hospital and caring for patients and listening to their complaints. having people treat you like crap at times, whether it be nurses, medical staff, or even the patients who just don't understand medicine but think that they do because they looked something up on Google and say, oh, this is a reliable source, but guess what? It's not, and it's outdated and it doesn't apply to you, and you have to explain all of that. And you're going to be spending a lot of money. Whether it's your own money, your parents' money, the government's money, you're going to be spending a lot of money on this road. It is inevitable. So just keep that in mind. If you are from a low-income family, this is still possible. Don't think that the road to medicine is done for you just because you cannot afford it and you can't afford a living. I made another video on this. Look it up. It's for low-income students. You can still make it, but just letting you know, you're gonna probably be on a ramen noodle diet for a while, especially if you are relying on government loans to pay for your education and for your housing and stuff like that. If mommy and daddy can pay for everything for you, lucky you. It makes things a little bit easier, at least in regards to the financial aspect of things. So for those of you thinking that, oh, doctors, you guys make so much money, we go into our 30s, like mid-30s, before we actually start making real money. And we have a lot of loans to pay back. And these loans, there's an interest rate, there's capitalization. So it's not like, oh, you just have $300,000 to pay for medical school. No, that $300,000 grows and grows and grows as the time goes by. So you have to pay a lot of money back to the government, especially if you're taking loans out. And it takes years. I know some doctors have spent over 10 years of their life after medical school trying to pay off their student loans, living a bare bones lifestyle. So for those of you, if you are patients, if you are just people, part of the general public, not interested in going into medicine or anything, don't think that just because someone is becoming a doctor that they're in medical school, or even after that they're super rich, because that's not the case at all, generally speaking. And we've gone through a lot of stress and anxiety and sleepless nights. You applaud yourself for waking up at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. in the morning. A lot of us wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning. That's not the case for every medical student, of course. Everyone's different. But there have been many times like that in our lives where we have to wake up super early and stay awake super early. And sometimes it goes on to even the next day and you get no sleep at all. And you have to go in there to the hospital in front of your patient who's throwing up in your hands or causing a fuss, and you have to go in there with a smile and talk in your soft, polite, calming doctor voice and explain everything to them and handle the situation and treat them and care for them, genuinely so, and care for not only the patients but the doctors and the nurses and the other staff. You have to communicate with them and be kind to them and professional and nice. We cannot, as medical students, be rude to other people. It reflects poorly on you, no matter how tired you are. Because guess what? The doctors around you, like the senior doctors, they might not have gotten any sleep that night either, or even for the past 2 to 3 days. And yet they're still there, smiling, being nice to you. So you have to be nice to them as well. Even if they're being quote unquote rude to you or being very strict or whatever, you still have to go in there and put your best foot forward and be your nicest self. That's part of what it means to be a medical student. And I've met medical students who are not like that. They just snap. They're like, I can't, I'm tired, stop talking to me, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? People call them out on it. And they're viewed poorly. You are being evaluated in medical school. You are being judged by the doctors around you, by your attendings, by your preceptors, by their staff. They are writing down who's a good student, who's not. Is Bob very rude, coming late, has a bad attitude? That's going to show on your record when you apply for residency. Or is this student, Lisa, like super nice? She's really hardworking, really friendly, does not complain. They're gonna write that, and residencies that you apply to will see it. So you're being judged everywhere you go. Not just by the doctors, but also by other students that you meet. You meet students from other schools as well who could be rotating with you. So you want to leave a good impression because those are your colleagues. You might meet them in the future. They might refer a patient of theirs to you if you're an awesome person, if you're smart, if you help people, and if you are kind to the other medical students around you. If they like who you are, they'll want to be friends with you, and who knows, you could make a future business partner out of that also. So be nice, on top of being hardworking and smart and staying on top of your classes and also doing all the other life things that you have to do, like paying rent, cooking, and cleaning, and all that other stuff, adulting. So another thing to know is that your 20s tend to disappear. Like, whoosh. If you're in medicine. Now, some people are like, that's not true. I was able to enjoy all those things in my 20s. Now, you don't know about those people. Maybe their parents are helping them and paying for their schooling. Maybe they have an easier lifestyle than most do, or maybe they have a lot of help, like a lot of friends or family who are helping them along the way. But here's the thing, when you're in medicine, pre-med or medical school residency, you are very busy. Your first priority is studying. Some people are shocked. I remember I had a roommate who was not a pre-med, and she was like, I can't believe someone could study more than 5 hours straight. I've never done that in my life. And I was like, well, you're not a pre-med, honey, because you have to study a lot. That is your first priority. My attending said, he's like, forget getting a boyfriend, forget getting a girlfriend. They're not going to guarantee you anything in life. Your grades, however, are what matter. And that's going to show on paper. Not that you had such a loving boyfriend who took care of you for like a year and then he said bye-bye, found some cute chick in his trip to Paris and adios, didn't call back. What a nice boyfriend. No. So your 20s tend to disappear while your friends are out traveling the world and eating at fancy hotels or whatever. You're sitting there being broke and studying your butt off for your patients and for your future. And that's part of the reality of it. Can you have fun along the way? Sure, of course. Depends on you. Are you on top of your studies? If you are, maybe you can make some free time to engage in some hobbies. It's always good to have work-life balance or study-life balance. You need that. You need that in order to de-stress. Is it the same experience as your friends who are going out there and blowing all this money, wearing these fancy clothes and eating at fancy places? No, it may not be the same, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, I could say so much more about this, but during your 3rd year of medical school, you apply to residency, and then you do interviews, you pay for the applications. Applications cost so much money. I know people who've spent $1,000 to $6,000 on applications. So it's a money-making machine, this whole application process. So you spend all that money, and then hopefully you get into residency. And once you get into residency, residency is basically like you say, I want to be a surgeon. So you applied to surgery residency. Or I want to be an internist. You apply to internal medicine residency. I want to be a pediatrician. You apply to pediatric residency. That's how it works. And finally, in residency, you get to focus and learn what you have wanted to learn ever since you decided to become a doctor. Example, you've always wanted to be a pediatrician. Now you finally get to learn everything you need to know about pediatrics in residency after all those years. So that's kind of how it works. Residency can range from 3 years to 10 plus years depending on what residency you choose. If you choose surgery residency, like neurosurgery, probably 10-ish years of residency. If you apply to family medicine, maybe you only have 3 years of residency that you need to complete in order to become a family medicine doctor. But when you graduate from medical school, you are considered to be a doctor. Doctor. Congratulations. You have finally fulfilled your life dream. But can you work as a doctor right after med school and not after residency? Well, you're technically working as a doctor in residency, but before that, not so much, because you need to get board certified. And in order to get board certified, you need to do at least 1 year of residency that involves internal medicine. So yeah, you can't really do much with your medical degree after med school. It's almost like you kind of have to go into residency. And residency also costs money because you're getting educated. But that's when you finally start earning money. You haven't been getting money in high school. You haven't been getting money in undergrad, except for some little jobs you might have done here and there. You haven't gotten money in medical school because studying is a full-time job. Some medical schools don't even allow you to get a job during medical school. So you haven't been making money for 12 years, and that's assuming you went straight from high school to undergrad to medical school. Some people have gaps in between, so you can imagine just how difficult that can be. You haven't been making money, and now you're in residency, and you're finally making the same amount that someone who works at the front desk of a medical center makes. Yay! The reason why I'm saying that is to portray medicine as realistically as I can, because some people think, oh, once I go into residency, I'm gonna be making hundreds and thousands of dollars. No, that's not the case. Even when you go into residency, the average that you make your first year, I would say, is about $60,000. It depends on the location and it depends on the school, but that amount increases as the years go on. And then after residency, however many years you had to spend there, you can finally work as a specialized doctor. But after residency, there's also fellowships. So fellowships is like specializing, like subspecializing. Example, if you want to do a certain type of surgery, you want to specialize in epilepsy, like that subject, you have to do a fellowship in it after your residency. So the schooling goes on and on and on and on. Here's the thing. When people say you should be a lifelong learner, when you're a pre-med, in order to get into medical school, you need to be a lifelong learner and show that, they mean it. Because medicine is a lifelong learning process. You will learn your entire life. The tests will not end. Get used to taking exams now. Don't complain about it. Learn how to control your test-taking anxiety. View it as a part of your life. Don't view it as, oh, I have to take a test. No, it is part of your life if you choose this journey. You will be taking exam after exam after exam after exam. Even when you become an established senior doctor, you still have to take exams. You have to take board exams. You have to take your license renewal exams. You have to take exams your whole life. Your whole life. Get used to it. Easier said than done. I know. Trust me, I know. No one likes to be examined all the time, but you need to view it as part of your life, because that is how the educational system here is. And in a way, it's kind of a good thing. I guess you could say it forces you to study and stay up to date on your material. To people who aren't planning on becoming doctors, let me also say this. Doctors deal with not only exams and studying and taking care of patients day and night, and even sacrificing time spent with their own families, sacrificing even the way that they live, whether it be eating one meal a day type of thing. It's not just that doctors have to go through. We also have to go through administrative responsibilities. You know that doctor who you went to go meet and they were on their computer screen typing away as you talked to them? They were probably listening to what you were saying, but they have to type it all down on a computer, click a bunch of buttons, send that over to maybe another doctor or save it or whatever. We have a lot of administrative duties that we need to complete. And there are things that administrative assistants at the hospital can do, but there are many things that doctors themselves have to do that they can't pass off to someone else. So there's a lot of that also. On top of that, we have to deal with insurance companies. Now you may think, my doctor is charging me so much money, blah, 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 my insurance, blah, blah, blah. A lot of patients honestly don't have that great knowledge on how insurance works. Doctors, the ones I've met at least, really don't like insurance companies because they give patients and doctors and administrative staff a really hard time. Making patients pay huge fees for medicines they desperately need and not getting in touch with them or the administrative staff soon enough, or rejecting certain medications because they have to meet a certain quota, certain number of patients they have to reject. I can't even go into it because it would take hours explaining, and it can be very complicated, but just know that doctors have to deal with a lot of headaches. Pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, administrative duties, all these in life also, things happen in life that they have to deal with too. But our first priority is always our patient, but we have so much stress in our lives that people do not realize. And you don't realize the journey that we have gone through to get to where we are today. It is not a journey that anyone can go through. I always say this, anybody can become famous. You can be famous from silly little things. You've seen it already in real life. Dumb TikTok videos, random stuff that are making people famous. Anyone can be famous, but not everyone can become a doctor. It is not an easy road. And life will not always be easy. It might be harder than a lot of the people that you've met in your life, but that's part of what makes doctors so special. They have gone through so much in their lives to become doctors. A lot of us have. And we're dealing with issues in our lives outside of medicine, on top of taking care of patients and going through all that we have to go through. And still being nice to people and taking care of them and prioritizing others over ourselves. It's no wonder that being a doctor is the most respected career that there is. We also have to deal with nurses who don't understand the journey as well. I've met nurses who are like, doctors, what do? They don't do anything. We nurses are doing everything. Not true. Not true at all. You don't know what happens behind the scenes. Even if you're there at the hospital with doctors, you don't see everything. You haven't seen our lives either and what we had to go through to get to the point where we are. And a lot of doctors won't sit there and tell you about it at length because it takes way too long. So they're like, forget about it, brush it off, move on. We've dealt with worse. So to everyone who's not a doctor or not planning on becoming a doctor, just know your doctor, even if you don't like that doctor, deserves respect because he or she has dedicated his or her life to caring for patients. And they have gone through a lot to get to where they are today. So that's worthy of applause, honestly, and much more. So to all of you who want to go into medicine, let me say this. Don't pursue medicine for money. Don't pursue medicine because you think it's an easy way to make lots of money and have a stable career and everything in life will be guaranteed once you get to med school, because it's not like that. Nothing is guaranteed in life. You still have to work hard. The hard work will never end. So if you love medicine, if you love caring for people, serving others, you love being intellectually challenged, medicine might be for you. I hope this video didn't discourage you too much. I just wanted to be as honest as possible and to give you guys a good overview. This is not everything. I cannot sit here and tell you every single little thing about medicine because you really have to experience it in order to understand what it's like. But I just wanted to make this so that people who aren't in medicine learn to really respect their doctors and the journey that we've gone through. It's not something that just anyone can do. And also for students who want to go into medicine, become doctors, to show you a little bit of what to expect. Because I remember when I was in high school or even when I was a pre-med, I didn't know any of this. No one was there to really guide me. And I always thought it would be helpful to at least get a mental picture of what it could be like or what it is like. So that's why I'm making this video, and I hope it helps you all. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Take care, and props to you for choosing medicine. If you have, you got this.